Hi, Joanne. It's nice to have you here, and thanks for taking the time to chat with me today about Claudette Sorel and her wonderful piano playing and this fabulous two CD set. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here, and I'm always happy to talk about Sorel, Claudette Sorel. She was a force of nature, and it's about time that we have a way of reintroducing her to the world as absolutely great pianist and also a pioneer in music and a very inspiring force. I met Claudette in the 1990s sometime when she was putting together a foundation to help women musicians. But I should back up and say that she herself was an astonishing musician, of with women or men, it doesn't matter. She was born in 1932 in France, and at the age of 8, she emigrated to New York with her parents. And I think it was probably because, Chris, she was such an extraordinary child prodigy that they thought she would have a better education in a big city like New York. So they came, and she was amazing. I mean, that year, I think, or the next year, she gave her solo recital debut at Town Hall. And the year after that, at the age of 10, I think it was, she played with the New York Philharmonic. So this was someone that was recognized as a phenom. You know, she was absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah,
She had,
sorry,
yeah,
I was listening to the two CD set. My friends across our media sent me the tracks, and the first track I heard was the Moshkovsky piece, the solo piece that's on the set. And my first thought was, "Holy Dinah, this she's a force of nature." Is right. She can
yeah, and
really
I'm
really
serious about
play.
that. She could really play. She also had tremendous personality and force at the piano. I mean, she was very poetic, and she was a very petite woman. She was tiny, just tiny. It was amazing how she produced this multifaceted color from the piano. She was a very, very strong player, but with a lot of imagination. And she had a spectacular career in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Then, unfortunately, one day in New York in the winter, she slipped on the ice and had an injury that really put a stop to her performance career. So I actually never heard her play live. She decided after that that she was going to dedicate herself to teaching and helping women artists. But just amazing work. And what I find so inspiring now, Chris, is that she was way ahead of her time in seeking out unusual or new music. I mean, she was a champion of people like Peter Menon, Lucas Foss, Aaron Copland, of course, Paul Creston. She looked for new American composers, and she always said that she was very, very proud to be a naturalized citizen. She loved this country and she wanted to help its music. Um, so she was doing new works before anyone else did. I mean, that was in addition to, of course, the Chopin and Rachmaninoff and all of the standard repertoire she played. But on the disc, there are two piano concertos that were written for her, which is a really astonishing works by Joseph Wood and Harold Morris,
Mhm.
and it's by Paul Creston that was written for her. So she's an inspiration to me because now we're re-examining what we play as an orchestra, and we're thinking, okay, there's a lot of music that deserves to be heard, that was not played in the past, that voices that were not heard, people now writing music. She was way ahead of us. She was doing that in the 80s and 90s. Well, she was going back to the 50s and 60s. She was doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, you hear about pianists championing piano concertos, Beethoven Emperor, the Grieg A minor, Schumann A minor, but she championed the Edward McDowell second piano concerto,
Oh,
which is also on
yeah.
this CD. Like it's really just remarkable. It was you're sort of touching on it already, but one of my questions was she enjoyed playing American composers. So did they come to her, or did she go out and look for them, or was it a combination of both?
I think it was a combination. She was very well known in that period, the 50s to the 70s, and very open to people and very charming, a very charming woman. So they may have found her, or she was looking for them. But that appetite for new music was not that common in those days. New composers really struggled, to find a voice. But in Claudette Sorel, they did, and she when you listen to the new concertos, you can tell how seriously she took them, because these were difficult pieces and they were flawlessly played.
Yeah. One of the other things I was reading about her was apparently she had a fascination for the music of Rachmaninov and traveled to the Moscow Conservatory to study him. And she discovered 3 nocturnes of his that had never been performed before. So again, we've got this researcher and explorer of music.
That's what she was. I mean, she was an explorer. She had this endless curiosity. And yes, on the disc, there were all these 3 very young pieces of Rachmaninoff that she found no one else had ever heard them before and played them. So an amazing woman, amazing intellect, but most of all, a communicator on the piano, because she was so dramatic, so emotional. And you hear that in everything she played. And she loved the MacDowell. That was her, you're right, that was her signature piece.
Mm-hmm. So just to clarify, there is this Sorel Organization, and you met her through the setting of that. Where did that organization form? And can you talk a little bit more about what the Sorel Organization exactly does?
Right. Well, what she did was, when she realized that she wasn't going to have a performing career anymore, she founded an organization. It was named after her parents, the Elizabeth and Michel Sorel Charitable Organization. And that was in the 90s. And she reached out to me to be on the advisory board. And I was just starting my career, really. And so that was very daunting to me, but I loved her. I mean, she was irresistible. She's such a beautiful human being. And she then wanted to use that money to help women pianists, because she always felt that women didn't have quite the same opportunities as men in her time. And she thought this might help. Some money for training, some money for expenses, some way of helping them. And she was concentrating on women pianists. But then she started to have the idea that she should go beyond that and work with women composers and women conductors. And I thought that was very groundbreaking in the 90s. So we talked about that a lot. And when she passed away, I think that the organization still existed, but it didn't do a great deal until really now, with Wendy Persons, who's taken over. She's really revitalized the organization and given it a new purpose. And Wendy and I talked a great deal about what we imagined Claudette would have wanted at this point, in our time. And I think we both agreed that the people who really needed the assistance now were women composers. Because Chris, I mean, you play a lot of music and you know a lot of music and you're a performer yourself. So you know that still women composers are in the smallest minority. So we both thought this would have made Sorel, this would have made Claudette happy, because she would have been helping the people who need it most and who could really change the musical landscape. So that's what we've been concentrating on now. But I'm glad that we were able to sort of rescue her performances and share them with the world.
Yeah, and like I say, like both of these CDs are remarkable. I mean, from a pianist who I'd never heard of before, I sat down and was listening to them, and it's amazing. She also wanted to, aside from composers, also conductors as well. I was reading about you, Joanne, and I know that this was something that you had to struggle with early on in your career, this idea of a woman conductor. Did you and Claudette talk about that aspect of the classical music industry?
Yes, she was very interested in that, because this was her sort of mission now, to help women who were encountering difficulties, and so she was very interested, very curious about why and what steps there were. And I was entering the conducting world at I think a good time. The door was opening, but it wasn't open yet, but it was opening. And she was very interested in that, and she left a legacy to the New York Philharmonic to help them in hiring women conductors. She spoke out for women everywhere. She taught at Fredonia. She was actually, for SUNY Fredonia, she was actually chair of the piano department for many years there. And she was vitally active in the music world, speaking out for composers, for conductors, for women pianists. I still find that very inspiring that she was doing that in an age when it wasn't so common.
So the two of you must have been very much kindred spirits, because I know you yourself are an explorer of classical music as well. So you both sort of have both of those things in common, this whole idea of exploration and the fact that, you're both women and sort of redefining the field, as it were. Um, do you think it's better now, like over your career, in regards to women conductors and women composers? Have you noticed a change at all since you started?
There has been a change, but it's been very slow. I would have said that, Chris, in the 80s and 90s, I would have said, well, in another 10 years, we'll see lots of women on the podium. We'll see lots of women on orchestra, programs for the year. And it was very slow to change. And I guess I understood that classical music is a traditional organization in general. We're sort of rooted in the 19th century, and we still have the same traditions of orchestras of that time, and nothing wrong with that. But it was slow to open up, but I think it has. I think it's really changing now. But the thing that I think is changing the most slowly is women composers, and that's why I was very happy to get to sort of reinvigorate the mission of the Sorel Foundation, because I think they need the most help now, and it's going to give us a legacy of great music. You're right. And I were kindred spirits in that way, and more than I realized even at the time, because after that, in my conducting career, I became involved with looking for repertoire that was unknown. Whether it was in the Women's Philharmonic in San Francisco, where I worked for 10 years, or here now in Buffalo, where for the last 20 years we've been actively exploring for unknown composers for Naxos. And it's been thrilling for us. It's actually been so gratifying and so interesting. And I think, well, that went back to Claudette's spirit of, just being curious about music.
Yeah, and just exploring. It's funny. You mentioned the Women's Philharmonic. I was watching an interview that you did on YouTube. You were talking, I think, with a woman named Sue or something, and you said something very interesting. Classical music cannot be a museum, which I thought was perfect, and that's exactly right. It's nice that people like yourself are starting to explore more of the classical literature, and Claudette Sorel was doing the same thing as well. That's for sure.
She was, and I am so proud to have been her friend, and not many people, knew her personally, and I feel that was a great gift to me to know her. I wish I had known her when she was still playing live, but I think her spirit lives on, and you're right, her playing is truly astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's the foundation, but I was also reading there's a Sorel piano competition that's held at Fredonia. What do you like? Can you tell us a little bit about that? How much do you know about that piano competition?
Well, it's for young pianists, and it's held at Fredonia, SUNY Fredonia, which is not far from Buffalo. So that's how I know about it. And since she was the chair of the department, the school honored her because they felt it was amazing for them. They were able to get the services and the talents of this extraordinary artist in Fredonia. She was a very good teacher, vitally interested in her students. So, and young people, of course. So they have tailored the competition towards high school students who are at a very important part of their growing career. Where in high school they're making a decision whether to become professional pianists. They're already very, very well schooled, and they've probably been playing since they're 5 or 6. So it was very important to give them this opportunity to compete and to play. And it just happened a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it was fantastic. The level of playing is very high. So I'm glad that she still has a presence at Fredonia too.
And just carrying on that tradition. Joanne, this has just been great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation this way. Pre-pandemic, you were supposed to be here in Winnipeg conducting the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra before the whole Michigas happened with COVID. Are there any plans to come to Winnipeg and conduct the WSO?
Yes, I'm so happy because I was very disappointed not to come, but I am coming next season, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's amazing. Joanne, this has just been so much fun to chat with you. It's been an honor to meet a wonderful conductor like yourself and to talk about Claudette Sorel and her amazing piano playing, this amazing 2 CD set, and Claudette Sorel's fantastic legacy. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today. This has just been wonderful.
Thank you, Chris. It's been great to meet you, and thank you so much for your enthusiasm of the disc and for playing our music. We really appreciate that.
Mhm. Thank you.